Yeah, I was just checking to make
That's
sure.
my mic.
Yeah, she can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
All right, let's roll, Brian.
All right, good morning, everybody. I'm Brian Sales, calling the meeting to order. We have an agenda. I'm sure everybody's been able to see that, and we'll begin with housekeeping.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the last official BRWG meeting until it becomes the BRAC. This isn't part of housekeeping, but I just want to say to everybody who's here, we have been together for about, what, 3.5 years, 3 years? I think probably about 3.5. Thank you. This group has been one that I've worked with since I was a baby here. I still am a baby here, but like a real baby. And it's been fun and always an adventure and exciting. And so I just thank you for that. That's just from me. So thank you. I appreciate it. I won't forget this group. All right, so housekeeping, I think we know, which is if you're a member and you can be on camera, be on camera. It sounds like Bill maybe doesn't have access to that, and that's okay. Stay muted if you're not speaking, and if you want to speak, you can unmute and just speak up, or you can raise your hand. Guys, there's a new function, and it's very exciting. I noticed it yesterday, where it will actually put the order of hands raised. So it'll be like if Chance raises his hand first, he'll have a 1, and then Holly would have a 2 if she was second. So, I mean, for someone who uses this all day long, it's very exciting. Mm-hmm. We've got the microphone here. It picks up pretty well. You don't need to shout, although it does also pick up side conversations, so be cool. And the only other thing I'll say is, as this is the last meeting of this group as it is currently composed and titled, if you have anything like that you want to share in terms of like things you'd like to see picked up or things that you feel like you learned, you loved, you hated for future members, right? If you will just email those to me individually, I can compile them. And that way, you know, have a little bit of expertise from this group. And I will stop talking now, Brian.
That's the end of housekeeping?
That's the end. Wait, what did I forget?
Can you check the volume of the speaker?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Sorry. Okay. Chelsea, will you unmute for 1 second? I had to pick someone.
And now,
Matt, will you say something?
I'm happy to unmute and happy to say hello to y'all. I might not say for the whole thing, but I have to say thank you for all of the years that you've given to this group. What a gift. It's been a gift to us, for sure. How did I do, Vanessa?
You did great. We're testing the volume. And I mean, I concur, like this group has gotten a lot done. A lot of recommendations out. So can you all hear okay with when Chelsea was speaking? It was good. Okay, great. All right. Thank you, Amber.
All right, well, moving on to public comment. None at this time. So next on the agenda, we're picking up discussion regarding file retention for brokers and sales agents as defined in 5.2.
So this was brought up at the last meeting and requested, I think maybe because there had been some confusion or discussions going on about what is required to be kept in the files. And there was a discussion about like agent file versus broker file. And then there's our rule, which is a little bit more specific. We've got, I don't remember who brought this up, but we've got Mike here, the reigning expert on what will get you into trouble. So.
Okay, I brought it up.
Okay, Bob.
I thought so.
This, I'm really glad this Mike is here so he can clarify our perhaps misunderstanding. As a sponsoring broker forever, it was confirmed in the last broker sponsored working group that I was on. We had the conversation that in a transaction, there are two sets of files. There's the agent's files and there's the broker's files. And they're not the same. Because the agent does things that frankly, the broker never knows about. And there's no practical way for that to happen. You know, when the agent has showings or has conversations, has emails back and forth with prospects, there's no practical way for them to provide that to the broker. Now, if Mike has some ideas, say, well, here's how that has been done and has worked well, I'm open to that. We've specifically run into an issue with item number 4, offers, contracts, and related addenda, but in this whole concept. And one of the things that happens when you are involved with TREC, particularly as I speak about TREC in many of my classes, and one of the things that they pick up is that I like TREC. I respect TREC. I think we're good. I think we do a good job. I have watched this evolve over 50 years. And where we are today is better than we've ever been. So because of that, people from classes and my broker colleagues come to me and say, well, Bob, this happened. I just had a complaint. I just had a situation and TREC told me I've got to do this, this, and that. So I have those conversations. And most of the time I say, well, no, that really is the rule. You really should have done that. But I've had a recent one in which TREC didn't find a transgression in this. There were some other things they got dismissed on. But this says, TREC essentially said, it appears that you as the broker, you don't have all the files. You don't have all the information, not only from substantive communications that people have with you, the broker, or with your brokerage, but with the agent. TREC kind of implies as, you know, you need to resolve this, take care of this, and they quoted, you know, the fines that could be assessed. So my concern is if I totally misunderstand how this should be done, one, I need to know that. Second, I need to know how we're going to resolve that, because I don't have a practical way for us to know about all the substantive conversations that our agents have with prospects and clients and other agents. There's no way for me to have that file. So Mike, help me with if I'm totally missing that, or I have to have all of that, or what? Help me with this.
So there's no rule retention for sales agents because the broker is the client, and broker and the, you know,
Yeah.
whomever you represent, the
Yeah.
buyer or seller, that's your client. So that's when this was drafted, it's time, you know, the broker is one, the ultimate repository of those documents.
I understand that.
Now, I understand practicality. I preach recommending that sales agents also retain their necessary documents, but the brokers, you know, ultimately is one responsible for holding those
Okay.
things.
And I remember that conversation back when this was done, because I was involved at that time, a number of years ago. And I agree with that it all falls on the broker. A broker will have policies, as we do, for our agents, for their retention. And I'll get a call on a semi-regular basis from agents. Remind us again, is it 4 years? Is it 5 years? Is it 7 years? What is it? Because they're trying to clean out their files.
Yeah.
And so we say, well, our policy is 5 years. And most brokers have a 5 or a 7 or a 10 or something like that. And that's for them to retain. So, and I understand the broker is responsible, but I don't see how I'm responsible for something I never know about. Because when the agent is going through the process of a transaction and they have substantive conversations with someone else in the transaction, another agent, the buyer, the seller, the prospect, the whoever, there's no retention from my point because I don't ever know about it. I don't ever see it. I don't have a mechanism in my brokerages where they copy me on everything. Now, we have a very strong documentation policy in our offices. Any substantive conversation you have, you better document it because verbal means nothing. And so we have that conversation, so they always document. But that's between the agent and the client, or the agent and the prospect, and the agent and the other agent. You know, it's a rare situation. Well, not rare. Unless it's something that they feel like has to bump up to the broker level and they copy me on it, I don't know about it. And so my concern is, while I understand the broker ultimately has the responsibility for retention, and at some point in time, we can have another conversation about broker responsibility. And Trek has an investigation, we don't know about it, but I think that I want to make sure that Trek is not going to hold me responsible for some substantive conversation, or communication that happens in a transaction that's totally at the agent level, and I'm never copied on it, I never see it, I never know about it. There's practical or otherwise, I don't think there's a way that I can in any way retain that information because I never have it. Am I doing that wrong? Do I need to find some way to have my agents copy me on every single thing they do? And by the way, if that's the case, we've got a real problem. That's a huge problem.
Well, you guys, I mean, this would be in your wheelhouse to observe or, review this rule, make changes, things like that, if necessary. I mean, this was drafted.
It'll be 10 years.
Close to it. So, I mean, technology's changed, communications have changed. A lot of the communications that we get in investigations are text messages between a lot of stuff. Not sure that was contemplated when this rule was a thing.
Yeah.
Emails was obviously
Right.
around then, obviously. There's ways to have retention on emails through servers in your offices and things
Well,
like
but see, if
that.
we do that, here's our very serious challenge. Who on my staff, and I'd have to have an additional added staff person who's going to review all that.
But not
Well-
only that, they don't always use the same domain as
No.
what your business is.
Well, let me circle back. We actually started something. I just investigated this myself after our last meeting. So we implemented backing up all of the emails, no matter what, and anybody who left or whatever, we have the old backups.
Right.
And the problem is that what we figured out is, and I'm just saying this, the problem is if they're not using our emails, if they're using their personal email, it's also a liability to us because if they get hacked and they have people's personal information, we use good email servers. I can back it up. But the problem is if they're using somebody else's domain, if they're using
Gmail
their
or
own
whatever.
Gmail stuff or whatever they're doing, it also could be not covered under E&L, is what I also found. It also could be a liability on the credit, for credit repair and things like this. You may have to provide credit repair if they're ever hacked or anything like this. But all that personal information, this is a big issue. And I'm gonna tell y'all, what I'm seeing is that I see a lot of people willy-nilly on the emails because we have issues that go back and forth with other brokers and different things like this. And trying to get that information out of somebody else has been very difficult. And I think we do need to look at this rule because for sure, tracking that information down has been difficult and almost impossible when people are using their personal emails.
Is there a way to put that rule on the screen? Thank you.
I hear two things. One is Bob's question about what is his responsibility as a broker for communication that he doesn't know about.
Mhm.
Where is that threshold for your responsibility? The second thing I'm hearing about is the rule talks about substantive communication. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are very objective items. Those are contracts and documents, but number 3 is substantive communication, which is more of a subjective.
Whatever that
Who
means.
defines substantive,
Right.
So those are two different issues, I think.
What happens, this is my biggest concern is that if they're using their personal email, how do I get a copy of that email? Or how do I force them to give me a copy of it? I know they're supposed to retain it.
Especially since they've already left you.
Right, and then it's our responsibility to keep it. So do we need to make sure in this rule to provide company email or something? And we back it up or?
Well, and I think this gets to the heart of broker responsibility and what we're responsible for and making sure that the rules we have for our agents help us comply with the rules that we have in this section about retention and about what we're doing.
Hands up, dude, just let you know.
You have two hands up.
Oh, Chelsea.
Kelsey,
Soccer was first.
soccer.
Hello. Hi. Hi, you guys from sunny California. I wanted to say I agree with Bob. It is a liability, of course. And if they are using their own personal emails, how do we don't have a copy of that? That could be, they could definitely be discussing substantive conversations, having substantive conversations with their clients who are our clients. And so, short of making them an employee and demanding that they use our emails, it's really difficult to keep a record of something that we have no idea is happening. So I agree. That's it.
Ms.
And
Chelsea.
I was just going to say, this may be a great issue to kind of lob to the new group, but it also seems a little bit, I sound like a parent saying this, but a little bit of a behavioral issue, that all you can do is have policies in place and require people to comply with your policies. And so you could have a policy in place that says you cannot use a personal email address, so that you have more control over that. It seems like you have the room to put policies in place, which helps you be covered from a responsibility standpoint, that dictates how they have those substantive conversations so that you can maintain these documents as needed. I'm not suggesting that this rule doesn't need to be updated to contemplate new forms of communication and things like that, but regardless of the medium used to communicate, I mean, we can provide a definition of what's considered substantive, but you have to be able to retain that, and you can handle that through policies. Doesn't mean that people won't behave poorly, but that's different than not having a policy in place.
Can that paragraph, kind of like we did for the 2-day rule, where it says broker up there, can you add and sponsored agent?
I think you'd have to pull it out of
You have
the
to pull it.
responsibility rule.
Can I also ask a question? I know that a lot of you probably use the Texas Realtors Independent Contractor Agreement. I think I remember there's some language in there that talks about the obligation of the sales agent to provide all files. Is there something like that
I believe so.
in the agreement?
Yeah. I'm like 99.9%
Yeah,
sure.
I'm kind
Yes.
of with you. Yeah.
Yeah. I added some.
I'm
I
100% sure that
believe
exists.
that's in there.
Chance says he's 100%.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so, and by the way, it's only very broadly stated, because I do use that with
Mhm.
additional on there. It's not real clear and specific, but it raises another challenge. And I agree with Chelsea, and there's a behavior thing, and we can set up rules, and we could say, yeah, you need to use our emails, use the company emails for all subject conversation like that. And that'll help a little bit, but not as much. I still have the challenge with what I still perceive as the two files. And it's more than just somewhere in the cloud, we've got everything that our agents did on everything they did. Talking to prospects, holding open houses, every communication, and have it somewhere in the file. And that I've also got that in my file. That's not practical. That's just not a doable thing. I really got to have a separation between what I have as the broker, what we deal with on every agent, every transaction, everything they do versus what they do. These two will never be the same and shouldn't be the same. There should be two separate files. And when we get to certain points in the situation, because one of the things that I preach and every broker preaches in their compliance and risk management is making sure that you train the agents, or when it gets to that substantive situation that could roll into, where anybody even looks like they're unhappy, make sure the broker gets it. Make sure you now begin that trail that you have everything. But we're talking about a lot of communications that, frankly, if we try to define substantive, I mean, they've got a buyer and they're out showing builders and they're builders and open houses, things like that, and have conversations, probably text back and forth, email. That can't be part of our record. That can't be part of our file. And so I've got to deal with, and I think it's probably a good idea for the next, worthwhile group here to kind of do this, because I think there are a lot of layers to this. And I think part of it is maybe being clearer on the rule, but I think part of it is vetting the concept of the two files. And this is at the heart of what we're doing and what Trek has been doing for 20 years and trying to hold brokers responsible, but letting brokers know what that means. The battle that we had from the very beginning was, okay, we're gonna hold broker responsible. What the heck does that mean? And we started that broker responsibility course, which kind of moved through that process.
This TAR file is outdated too. Says in any transaction related to a broker's real estate business in which associate is involved, associate must maintain a file at broker's office that contains all applicable items described under the definition of files under paragraph 3B. Associate will maintain the file in a format that broker regularly maintains such files in broker's office.
Yeah.
We have virtual
don't do that
offices and
anymore.
everything. Yeah, that's totally
Even
outdated.
our physical office, we don't do that.
Chance?
All right, so number one, we do that. We just do it electronically now. I'll just say this. I don't require any of my agents to use, in fact, we don't issue company email addresses. And the reason we don't is because I want my agents to brand themselves and have their own domains and have that be their website that drives through. And our independent contractor agreement has the language that you just heard. And so they're required, when they upload their file documents into our file system, to upload their communications with their clients. And the only thing I'll add to this is, in today's universe, we're talking way more than email, y'all. Like, they're communicating via Facebook Messenger, via text message, via any other kind of chat app that exists. You should see the screenshots that we get in our compliance system. They're all over the board from where they come from. So just some thoughts to throw out there.
That's when we get in investigations. I mean,
See, we don't want to be there.
we get
We don't want to be
text
there
messages.
having you investigate.
Yeah.
Well, ultimately, sales agents still have the obligation to cooperate with us. So when we ask for documents, we're expecting them to have them in a certain sense as well. But broker's ultimate repository, because I think that when this was thought through was, like we were discussing, the sales agent's going to leave, and that may have been like kind of their client, but it wasn't really technically their
broker's
clients
client.
under the law.
Yeah.
So
If this were to be updated, what is the process? Is it statutory and all that?
It's a rule.
Okay.
So I heard Chelsea's recommendation that this might be something that we kick down the road and look, but not to use that phrase, but to suggest to the advisory committee to take a look at this rule, perhaps work on more clearly defining substantive communications. That's one piece. And then Bob, your second piece is the two files.
Yeah.
What you are required to responsible for, maybe with some clarification on substantive communication. But the second file that the agent or the licensee keeps, is there any rules surrounding that? And is that something we should take a look at?
So it's a good point, and I can bring it up. Everything is at the broker repository, broker responsible. To what degree can we address the agent's responsibility under a particular broker? As we look to take this to the next group, I'd like to see us be able to address that. And I'm very happy that we have recognized this is an issue and that we'll move it forward and address it. And it's not a small issue, in my opinion. And the two files and what we can do to hold agents responsible, operate under a sponsoring broker, or we're gonna hold the broker responsible. Are there in fact really two files? Because what I'm getting from my broker colleagues is that when the agent's files are not retained by the broker, Correct, holding the broker responsible for something the broker didn't even know about. And so I think we want to have that conversation. But I think there are a lot of layers of this that, and I'm optimistic that we've got enough carryover from this group to the next group that will have a good flow with the conversations that we've had. We don't have to start all over again. Is that your sentiment? So we've got a good flow going forward?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, nothing is set
Sure,
yet.
I know we decided, so I guess.
But yeah, I mean, I think you guys, this is, if your rec today is to ask the, BRAC to explore this further, and we can provide them with, the recording of this meeting.
Sure.
Any notes that, you might have. I think that would be the way to do it, because you do have a new group and you will have some carryover, certainly. I think that's always the intent, right? Or that is the intent.
I'm glad we're able to do that. It's an issue I'd really like to see us address.
Very good. Are you all ready to move on?
Well, do we want,
I think we need to have,
Have to
Want a
have a
motion?
I think we,
need a
yeah.
motion?
well, yeah, yes, but I know you just said it, but can we just summarize quickly what it is we're wanting to recommend? I know you'll do that in the motion, but I just want to make sure I've got it, because Bob, it seems like you're talking about, the sales agent file shouldn't, if I'm hearing you right, like that's just something that you feel like you don't have access to, and you shouldn't be penalized for what's in there or not in there, probably is more important, because you've got your file and your requirements for it.
Yeah.
And you don't think it's like, to you, it doesn't seem manageable to have control over that agent's file or to.
And you don't have to have if you have 10 agents, you got a problem. If you've got, in my case, 500 agents, it's a huge problem. So from a manageable is a good expression. It is a challenge. You finally need to address in here, I think, and this is at the part of what I think this group is doing, is letting the broker know from a compliance standpoint, here's how Trek views it. We're happy to comply. We just need to know where the bar is. And so if you say, yeah, here's the deal, we understand it's going to be hard to work with. You're going to have to hire extra people, and maybe you should go to easy like there's this man. But
Okay.
I think you're right. I think the two files, making sure we have a clear definition of substance communication as you're working through that, really separating what the broker is responsible for, understanding at the heart. And every broker I know, in fact, they're tired of hearing me say it, you know what? You're the sponsoring broker. Everything that happens, that's you. That is you. You're responsible for everything. Well, Bob, I know you're not paying attention to that. So I understand that concept. It's just that we need to be clear what that actually means in relationship to what our agents are doing, what they can do, what they can't do. Because we're fighting some battles in real estate, as all of you know, from national, state, and local levels, that we've got to somehow make this manageable, not only for the broker, but for the agents to be something that they can do. Because I promise you, if we're too tight on this, agents will go to a broker who's not tight on it. We'll just lose them.
So just to summarize, a strict, I guess, more defined definition of what communication is. The next one would be file retention, spreading the burden to the agent. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
Maybe.
To what degree can we include the agent? To what degree can we hold the agent responsible?
Right. And then third would be, if we don't do that, then what is the requirement for the agent, is what you're saying?
Yeah, but also, and I think both of you mentioned this, in Chesapeake, our technology is so different now in all the different ways people are communicating. We've got to somehow look at that. We've got to recognize there's some practical aspects of the communication. Right.
Can I just a minor recommend? I would look at the laundry list and see if it needs to be tweaked or expanded. I've run into a few issues over the past few years on some cases I'll bring that up to the next group or whatever, but I think exploring that, not focusing specifically on substantive, explore some of the other things, and like you said, technology,
Yeah.
maybe some other things that need to be added or better clarified maybe.
Yeah.
Define what a file.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, what does that
based
even
on
mean?
the- And I think what is it called? The independent contractor agreement also needs to be looked at and probably reworded somehow, but what does that take?
Well, that's
We're
not-
not involved in that.
That's something
That's the.
I mean, you would think that maybe there's a change as a
Pass that
result.
to the.
Not a trick.
It's not ours. So, okay, I asked for that and the summaries are good, just so that when the next group is watching this,
Yeah,
Right.
you know.
Makes sense.
So yes, you would need you want to make a recommendation that the group explore that rule.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. Anyone got one? Motion?
yeah, I'd like to make a motion that what do we call it, ESAC? It's
BRAC.
RAC,
Mhm.
the BRAC, examine the issues in this particular section. What is it, 530?
535.2.
535.2
H.
H, in addressing the files from both a broker and an agent standpoint, and the degree to which we can hold agents responsible for compliance, and that we address the significant changes in communication over time, the technology that impacts on how people communicate. So I'd like to make a motion that we pass that on to the next group.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion?
Bill's got a hand up.
In favor?
Wait, Bill's got a hand up.
I'm sorry, Bill.
Bill's got it.
Yes, sir.
You're muted, Bill. Yep, there you go.
I think it's important to include in that motion that we need to look at the definition of substantive communication, because that really is critical. If you know what your substantive, if you have a definition of substantive, then that helps clarify what is the requirement to put in those files. And in other words, if you just need 5 things in a file, then it makes it very easy to create the files. But you have to decide what substantive means before you start telling people they got to have files. So in other words, I would suggest that we add that to the suggested motion for consideration.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I kind of thought it was somewhat included in the communication aspect of that. There is an aspect of that subject communication that we need to make sure that we've really got a better sense of when we deal with communication. Sometimes we don't know if it was substantive or later when a complaint hits.
Never a problem
Yeah.
till it's a problem.
So it's a little bit of a challenge of the timing of
All right.
what's substantive and how do we determine, say, well, this plaintiff attorney thought it was substantive, so, okay, fine.
So the motion as amended includes a further definition and flushing out of
Clarification of
substantive communication. So any other discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
It's a thought.
Thank you. All right, we're moving on. Next item on our agenda is a discussion and possible action regarding broker associates. It's an ongoing discussion, which we've had before about differences between a sponsoring broker and a broker associate. Am I remembering that correctly?
Defining a broker associate.
And I think I'll add this because I've been thinking about this one for a quarter, right? I think as you get into the definition, the idea, like, first I'm gonna steal my favorite thing that Bill always says. I say it a lot, Bill, and I always give you credit for it, like in every meeting I'm in, which is, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? So I think if you can identify exactly what the problem is, that will inform the definition. And I would also just recommend at the end of this that any recommendation, to the extent one comes out today, you also pass this to the next group, because they're going to be the ones that ultimately carry it forward. So, but I think starting with like an outline, because it seems like these conversations have been happening, and then it's we kind of forget what the original purpose is. So if somebody who is not me wants to state, you know, what are the problems, what are the issues, and we can get those down. And I think, and I mean, I don't know, you know, you all know better than me, but I think if we've got a foundation, then you can look. So I'll write them down.
I have notes here. I have, let me see, the last notes I have is discussion of broker associates needs to go to legislation, involve statute, recommendation to submit, define broker associate, and help brokers know what broker associate is responsible and can do, as in 535.2. As a broker, what a broker association cannot do has to be in our policies on contract agreements. Sorry, I'm just reading my random notes. And then we talked about like the definitions that you looked up, Leslie, for North Dakota, how they defined a broker associate. And we talked about adding exclusively what a broker associate cannot work in other offices. That was another discussion that we needed to talk about. And I wrote the code and the wording that the North Dakota has for their definition. I don't know if you guys want me to read that or not. I'll read it. A real estate broker who does not have an office under the broker's own name, but is affiliated. This is the definition that they have for broker associate. A real estate broker who does not have an office under the broker's own name, but is affiliated with another licensed broker and performs services similar to that of a salesperson, must not at any time act independently as a broker and shall not perform any real estate services without full consent and knowledge of the brokers supervising brokers. The designated broker shall at all times be responsible for the action of the affiliate broker associated to the same extent as though the affiliate broker were as affiliated salesperson. I think we just pretty much talked about having a definition
Of what
a broker associate would be for us, because there's none for us.
And also discussing the website of how that shows when we're looking for.
Yeah, TREC
broker.
website update to show affiliation, but
We talked about
we've
that.
talked about that several times.
And back to the question of what is the problem we're trying to solve?
So to that question, I think in my mind, the problem is how TREC addresses it or doesn't address it, and the broker's responsibility in dealing with broker associates. As far as I can remember, right now, TREC only addresses broker associate in advertising, 535.154. Otherwise, they don't touch on it at all, which totally leaves it up to the broker to make a decision on what is that going to mean in their company. And for example, in this situation, one of the things that it throws out towards the end, that your affiliate broker associate, same rules as an agent. Well,
Right
that's not
now,
how
we don't
TREC
have
is.
it here.
Right now, brokers are brokers are broker. Doesn't matter. So that would, if you had that rule, that would, if a broker had that rule, that would change what we've got in the rules.
And the, sorry.
So I think, to me, the problem that I think we should solve is how far do we go with TREC regulating and defining and saying, here's what a broker associate is, giving brokers guidelines saying, here are the parameters under which you can set up policies on how you deal with broker associates in your office. So I think TREC needs to give the brokers some guidelines here, saying, here are the rules, here's how we address it. And then give the broker some latitude on how they're going to address it. To me, that's the heart of the real problem, is how far can TREC go to address this specific issue, not just in the definition, but in setting up the guidelines of,
But what's the issue?
is that TREC doesn't address it at all
No.
right
And if
now.
a-
But doesn't address, I'm sorry, this is like, but we're not addressing, do you mean that we don't recognize the relationship?
We don't.
No.
We don't. Right now, TREC does not recognize a broker-associate relationship except in advertising. I think TREC needs to address the broker-associate relationship with brokers, with sponsoring brokers, not sponsoring a broker of that broker-associate. they need to address the definition of what a broker associate is from a TREC standpoint. And TREC needs to say, here's how a broker associate operates, within a brokerage, and here are the policies. Here's the latitude we give a broker. You can say, you know what, you can be in multiple of their offices. That's okay as long as you have permission, written document, or you can't be, you can or you cannot sponsor. Because TREC gives that broker associate the authority to do everything that a broker can do.
Right.
And it does not otherwise, it does not anywhere address what a broker associate is, and I think they need to. I think
Okay.
the problem is TREC needs to address that.
So you want regulatory authority over the broker associate relationship with the broker, with the sponsored broker.
Yeah.
Sponsored broker. And also that
Doesn't-
TREC does not notify,
Right.
because it doesn't recognize their relationship. It never notifies the broker that it's under if there's an issue, like we have no idea unless that person tells us.
Right. So if you have it in your policies and procedures that they're required to.
And this also goes back to our transaction coordinator and Uber agent conversations we're having in other groups. Because at this moment, those people can go work for whoever they want to or work with.
Right, and that's gonna be discussed at the November one. Okay, so what I'm hearing is, I'm sorry, yeah, I just wanna, I'm gonna stop talking, I just wanna make sure, yeah,
Your question.
right, I think you have, but say it again.
Okay, so I think first of all, we need to decide, you need to decide, Mike needs to decide, Justin needs to decide, how far can TREC go in addressing a broker associate? First, they've got to identify what a broker associate is, because TREC hadn't done that. Until you do that, I don't think you can set up any rules. And here's what a broker associate can do, unless you say, here's what a broker associate is. So one, we need to actually, TREC needs to see how far they can go in identifying what a broker associate is, defining what a broker associate is, and then how far can TREC go saying to brokers, if you've got a broker associate in your company, here are the guidelines, and maybe guidelines is the right approach as opposed to here are the rules. Here are the guidelines that you should follow dealing with your broker associate. And here are the things, by the way, that are totally your choice. I mean, TREC says, here's what your agent has to do for education. Oh, by the way, broker, you can require more. Here's what a broker associate can do in your office. By the way, you can require something additional or more. So I think we start off with TREC addressing a broker associate, which up to now they've not at all. So I think that would be our first step.
I think the
Which would
baseline
include
on here
the definition.
is that affiliation.
Yeah. I was
TREC
gonna say association.
recognizing the affiliation with the broker associate and the sponsoring broker.
And there are many layers to that, by the way, because it's not just my broker associate. Well, Chance, you've got some. You've got one who's a broker associate who operates in your office and operates in another office also. So not only do we have guidelines for Chance as a broker who has a broker associate in his office, but what about the other broker that this broker associate is working with? And so you've got those different levels of, there are a lot of layers to this, but it all starts with TREC recognizing, here's this really cute little animal, we call them broker associates, and here's what they are.
Vanessa, I think you had looked at that North Dakota rule also after our meeting and said that it's a kind of a carve out that could work, but it would be a statutory change.
It would, yeah, I think you would definitely, I think everything we're talking about would be a statutory change.
Because I think if we can talk about that, I think at the last meeting, people liked that. I never remember somebody say copy paste. I think it was Soccer about the words.
Yes, it was me.
So let's hear from her.
Yes, copy and paste. Thank you for reminding. I mean, we have to have a definition of that because if someone's in trouble as the broker, we never know unless they, the person who has been cited by TREC, lets us know. We have to be involved. There needs to be some place on the website that connects that broker to our office, as well as when there is an infraction and they are notified, we need to be notified as well. So in order to do that, we're gonna have to define it, and if it's statutory, then so be it, because we gotta get a handle on this because it's out of control. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
The notice of discipline is out of control?
Yeah, we don't get notified. Who
Okay.
does the broker get notified if a broker associate is in
No, and
trouble.
no, and I
No.
get that that's a desire, but you said, it's out of control, or I don't remember what you just said, but.
What's out of control is the fact that it needs to be defined simply because as a broker, we are never notified if a broker associate is in trouble. And we are just living our lives as brokers, never to be notified unless the person who has an infraction with Trek decides to tell us about that. You could just go on down the road and not even know that the broker associate has received a letter, an infraction, a violation notice, anything from Trek, because you would never know unless they told you. That
Okay, that's
that
helpful.
part, I think,
I just was
needs to
trying
be.
to understand. Yeah.
Let's hear from Bill.
I had just really a clarification because we're talking about a broker, a person who has a brokerage license, but is not being, but is under somebody else's brokerage in terms of they're working for a different broker, but they could operate as their own brokerage, but then they could also have the responsibility of operating with a particular firm that they're associated with. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so what the issue really is that the people who are not accountable, the person who has their own brokerage license but is not operating under the purview of somebody else. The question is, how do we find out what they're doing? How does the public get information on that person's brokerage and check them out? Is that what we're trying to is that the issue, Bob?
Say that again?
Is the issue that we're trying to make sure that if a person is not operating as under their personal broker license, that we have the ability to have the general public be able to identify if these people are doing something wrong?
Yeah,
Because
see, that's addressed to some degree in 535.154 in advertising. We address broker associate there. So I think you're kind of on the right track with that as you work through it. But, remember, a broker associate is not under another broker. They're only working, and you correct that with saying with another broker in their independent contractors agreement or some other business agreement that they have that says these two brokers are working together.
So Bob, what difference would it make if a person had a separate company or a separate business or a separate anything, and they're still working for you as an agent, even though they have a brokerage? In other words, is that something that really should be regulated? Is that something that is affecting the? And I'm not advocating or trying to persuade. I really am trying to understand, is that something that really should be a regulatory issue of dealing with a person's other licenses or other ability to do stuff? Or are we really here trying to make sure that the broker, if I've got a guy working for me, or I say working for me as an independent contractor, I want to make sure that that guy's doing my business correctly and that I'm being identified and notified if there's something wrong. But if the guy's if he's going rogue and he's doing stuff outside of my business, is that really something that I need to be, that the Trek should be regulating or controlling? Any different from if somebody in my group is operating their own separate business or they've got other things that they're doing outside of my business environment? That's what I'm trying to figure out, if that's something we should be really dealing with.
Well, Trek already addresses that as they address what a broker can do in that separate company. And they've got all the guidelines that every broker has. And I think by setting up guidelines that I talked about earlier, this shows the latitude that we're going to give the broker to say, here are our policies. I mean, I've got one of my broker associate has a separate company and she does property management under that company because no one in our office can do property management. So that's a separate, and she's regulated by Trek in everything she does under that separate company. So that regulation is already there. What I have with her is an independent contractors agreement between her and me in that situation. So I just think that Trek needs to say, here are the parameters, here are the guidelines, here's what Trek does, here's what the broker is allowed to do. That makes sense, kind of?
Would that definition allow for the situation you just described, Bob?
Yes.
Where you've got someone who is a broker associate who also does something else?
Well, the regulation doesn't address that. All the regulation says is when Cynthia, my agent, is doing that and her brokers, Trek says, here are your rules. You've got this company and here are your rules.
Sorry, I think I wasn't clear. The North Dakota definition.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, no, that's fair. I wasn't clear. So that definition that Yasmin read, how does that play into that scenario? Because I think that's the one, I think Chance has brought it up before too, of like property management often ends up being one of the ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
So is the recommendation that we're heading towards twofold? One is defining a broker associate with working under the
I like
purview
the
of
phrase,
responsible.
let's
broker.
address what a broker associate is, including a definition.
And then
Yes.
the second recommendation is Trek connecting the broker associate with the
Yeah.
responsible broker or the sponsoring broker.
With the
However we're gonna
affiliated
define
broker.
that. So it's really kind of a
Yeah.
two-pronged
In
recommendation.
terms of discipline and in terms of website, which are two different
at
things.
least notification.
Discipline notification.
Yeah.
And website.
And,
Which,
and in theory, this is what I was just mentioning, is that in theory, if, let's just say we were all working together and somebody says, well, who's the broker? If a client calls in and says, who's the broker? And say, I answer the phone, it's not my company, I'd say, well, I'm a broker. Even though I'm associated with another company, I guess, well, I'm the broker. So the problem is, I mean, in reality, that's what can happen and does happen.
but isn't that business management and not regulate, like, I mean,
Yeah, that's not
how far do you
regulatory.
want your
No, but
regulation
The
to
problem
go?
is what I'm saying is the association, is that when you associate an associate broker with that organization, it automatically addresses that issue. Because you're associated with it and that definition connects you with that entity and that other broker.
So then, I mean, that
So-
doesn't really, I don't know if that solves your problem of I'm a broker, because they could still say
They could
that.
still say it, but at least in the definition, if somebody says, well, they said they were the broker and there's an association with that, it clearly shows, hey, look, the guy was full of it or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm just I want to make sure we dig down today. I mean, for me, it's the recommendation. I want to make sure we dig down today to make sure, and it does sound like we're getting there, so that when we give whatever we're going to give to the next group, they don't, they may
They have their
start.
work cut out for them.
Well, they may start all over, but they'll likely use this, I mean, I'm hearing Trek affiliation website, I'm hearing notice of discipline, which, that's gone before the commission at workshop, wasn't well received. I think if that if the definition component comes in, or there's a shift in that, then maybe that scoops there. But it sounds like you've got discipline, website, and definition.
Right.
That's what I heard.
That's
Well,
correct.
And that
this one
definition
thing
to include,
It's a nice thought. I don't think regulatory wise, there's any way to do that. Because how would you even know? How would Trek know that this broker is associated with this other broker? Oh, by the way, if something bad happens to you, you need to tell us. Well, which one of those? The two more that I have? I don't think Trek can get involved with that. I think the most you could do is tell a broker associate, by the way, if there's an investigation on you, any broker you're affiliated with needs to know about it.
currently, yeah. That's why
Policy and procedure.
if
Yeah.
that is policies and procedures, but that seems to be the thing that keeps coming up, which is the notice of discipline. So if you want to address that, well, one, you'd need commission buy-in, but two, I think the only way you could truly do it would be to tie it into some sort of statutory change, be it the definition, be it something specific. But I mean, that seems like that's one of soccer's
Or Trek requirement on the part of
a
the
big
respondent.
ticket item. And then Bill's got and he said it in a way that I think is really important, which is, I mean, I know we all the same, but the notice to the public of affiliation. So, okay.
Good call out.
And this definition doesn't quite address what you were talking about, where if it's a broker that they can have their own other entity. It's kind of confusing. So that's something that the next group is gonna really have to look at.
It's good. I'm gonna,
We have lots of entities with under a brokerage, but
Yeah.
Bob, I want to ask you, I remember in previous conversations, we were also talking about whether or not a broker associate could sponsor agents.
Correct says yes.
Is that part of the
A
discussion
broker
we
has
need
to
to
have a policy
continue?
on that. Our policy is no. In our offices, you can't. But that's a broker policy issue.
Okay.
Policy procedure as opposed to a track issue.
Yeah.
This is your broker, you're a broker, a broker, a broker, a broker. Broker's a broker.
Gotcha.
Right.
Chance.
My question is more for the attorneys in the room. If we're talking about a definition, a defined term, that's a statutory change, right?
yes.
So that's got to go to the legislature.
Yeah, it's got to go, it would first go to commission, then to legislature, and
So I think if this is the road that you're going to go down, is making a recommendation to the commission that this become a defined term and that there be some rules related to broker associates. I think some focus would need to be on what that definition really looks like. It may seem simple on the surface, but if you've got somebody that's associating with multiple brokers, if you've got whatever that looks like, how is that going to play out in the long term when you're talking about these disciplinary actions and things like that? I don't disagree that it's a valuable conversation to be had. If I had a broker associate, I mean, I've got 37 broker associates that work for me. If one of them got a disciplinary action and I didn't know about it, that sucks. Like, that just sucks. I would want to know about it. And hopefully, we've got it in our policy procedures that they have to report it, mainly because of the work of this group, because I didn't know that until I got on that group. But I think it's something that needs to be really considered when you're talking about the definition. If this is going to go before the legislature, we need to really iron that out.
May I ask a question of Chance?
Yeah.
Chance, these broker associates that are affiliated with you, how many other brokers are they also affiliated? Just one or two or 5 or 10, or do you know?
Of the 37, I have one that is affiliated with another broker. And that's it.
Okay. But do you have a rule within your policy procedure manual that they can only be affiliated with one more?
No, I have a rule that they can't be affiliated with any more, but I've grandfathered that person into it because they were already here. But after we talked about this in that meeting, we created a policy in our policy and procedures manual that does not allow for affiliation with other brokers.
We don't either, except we've got that little proviso, except with information of management. So management has the ability to look at every case and make a decision.
Yep.
Not a complete prohibition.
All right, I think we're ready for a motion to recommend.
So have you got that? You got the motion now? We're good.
oh, I don't make motions.
But you know what it's going to say, right?
Okay, so here's, I mean, sounds like,
I would entertain a motion that Trek define associate broker. And secondly, connect and report and communicate the affiliation between the associate broker and their responsible or sponsoring broker. I would entertain such a motion.
Okay, so if I can tweak it a little bit, so a little tweaking. So I would like for us to recommend for our future group to address this, that Trek first address what a broker associate, including a definition. And that Trek would explore how far Trek can go in setting up any type of rules or regulations on the actions of broker associates. Because one, how far can you go to say, here's what a broker associate can or cannot do? Because I'd like to see us set up those parameters for a broker to say, here's the latitude I have. So one, address broker associates, including a definition. 2, I think that I'd like to see Trek explore and bring back to the next committee, here's how far we can go. And to Chance's point, how much of that is regulation, how much of that is rules? Because I do understand you picked up some additional ability for rules versus regulate versus statute. And in the legislature, I thought I saw something in Texas Realtor magazine about that.
Not for this. That's
But I mean, for
for
anything.
education.
Just for
It's for
education?
education and registry. It's pretty
Pretty
specific.
specific, okay. So I'm seeing you frown here on my phraseology. So, young lady.
No,
So whenever
I was
see you
trying
frown,
to, I haven't read the article.
I
was
hear the
trying to-
wheels going saying, let's be a little clearer on that, Bob.
Well,
We're not clear yet. We're working on being clearer.
that was pretty clear.
So address, including a definition, and then for Trek to explore the degree to which Trek can regulate broker associates and the degree to which that's a statutory or rules issue. And then to set forth for brokers what the rules are of broker associates and how much latitude, the guidelines for what a broker can do in their policy procedures.
And third,
The third,
the notification to
The
the
discipline.
brokers
And to the public.
and to the public on the website.
yeah, I think to the public for sure, which we've got that now
No.
in advertising.
No, but on the
Well,
website.
on the website.
Specifically on the
You
website.
do have it in, so regulatory authority over broker associates to likely include a definition of broker associate in order to create that regulatory authority, website affiliation. And let me go back, notice of discipline within that definition to the extent possible, or that regulation, and public affiliation on the website.
Right.
Wow.
Vanessa.
Y'all agree with that?
Copy and
That's
paste.
good news.
So this is the mess, this is not even a real motion though, guys.
I have to better write that.
Copy and paste that motion.
Well, it's a motion to recommend, so
It's a motion to recommend the committee take up this discussion with,
Along these
this is
guidelines.
where
Right.
you- where you-
Advising Trek in every non-substantive correction of the town.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Either.
Motion to recommend approved.
Yay.
I got it.
That was the tongue twister, right?
Ooh, moving on.
You're sitting there shaking your
Yay,
head.
us.
What have I done?
No, I am more like Robert from Robert's Rules,
Turning.
Well, let's move-
watching this meeting from above.
Are we good? All right,
Aye.
let's move on. Number 6, discussion regarding the number of LLCs or sales agents a broker can sponsor or supervise. Should there be a number? Should there be a limit?
I don't think so. I'm just gonna go say
I
that.
don't remember this conversation. Have we done this? Have we talked about this? I don't even remember this.
I think somebody brought it
Really?
up.
We talked about renter brokers.
Yeah, I remember a little bit of that conversation, but how do we, given the current regulatory status of a broker, how do we in any way, shape or form go down the road of starting to define, oh, by the way, this is how many you can have?
I don't think you can.
Is that even a possibility?
It's not saying how many you can have. It was more so how many, not just LLCs, we're talking about how many people can one designated broker oversee?
What's the,
Or
Effective.
designated
Yeah.
supervisor or whatever oversee.
why must a sales agent be sponsored by a broker? I mean, what's the baseline? And I think that is the question that we're trying to answer. Why do we even have sponsoring brokers over sales
The
agents?
question was asked 25 years ago.
And I think the answer
You want-
boils down to supervise.
Well, the answer at that
And then-
time came from, I'm trying to remember his name, the executive director at that time. Nice guy, really like him. He said, well, we can't hold everybody responsible. We got to pick an exact small group that we can hold responsible, and that's the brokers. That's why every salesperson has to have a sponsoring broker. So we can hold the broker to that, but we can't hold, at that time, there were like 30,000 agents total, something like that. Or maybe a little bit more than that. Do you remember? Anybody? It was not, certainly not the number we've got now. But they said, we can't hold everybody responsible. We got to stop and pick a group. And that's what the whole broker responsibility started right then. And we went through the process. So if we, with the numbers we got now, what are we looking at now? How many license holders?
Like 230.
Yeah,
230, that's
230.
including
Can you
everyone.
imagine the chaos? We say, okay, we're going to now hold all 200,000 responsible. As opposed to holding what, 35, 40,000 brokers? Which is enough of a problem, as we've discovered in this group. But I mean, not all states do this, do they? Some states, it's everybody goes in one pot.
Mhm.
And is that working out pretty well? Is that something as a regulatory body that we should take a look at to the question that Ryan just brought up? Is that even a possibility? Hey, let's put everybody in the same pot and we'll just regulate everybody. That way we don't have to worry about broker associates. Everybody's a broker, period, in the conversation.
I think there's a whole discussion to be had around delegated supervisors, team leads, group leaders, LLCs within a brokerage, all of these subgroups and teams and so on within a brokerage. And how the supervision flows. If that's the intent of supervising broker over licensees, whether they're brokerage associates or sales agents, the whole purpose of that structure is to provide supervision, a structure for supervision and mentorship, then I think we're missing some pieces with these, and with regard to delegated supervisors. What's their role and what's a team lead, and should a team lead be a delegated supervisor? I think there's a whole discussion about that whole supervisory chain of command, so to speak, that kind of left undiscussed.
Well, and I agree with that. I like that. And I think this is the right group to start talking about the brokers and how much they should take on. I don't think that's a regulatory issue. I don't think Trek has anything to do with that, but I think this group does. I think, we say, as we look at how we hold brokers responsible, how brokers can deal with this, how brokers can have 100 LLCs in their company and that kind of thing. But that's part of what the broker responsibility course does, the broker responsibility course that Chance was involved in helping write. And it's much better this year than it was 2 years ago. So good job on that. And so I think addressing that makes good sense. If for no other reason to make brokers aware of when you start taking on this many people, and my broker friends say, well, I just have to add another staff person. Because Trek can say you're responsible, but can Trek say, oh, by the way, and to be responsible for 100 agents, you need to hire a manager, or you need to hire a supervisor, or you need to hire whatever. I don't think Trek can do that. So I think from our perspective as the broker responsibility advisory thing, I think these are subjects that we should talk about to help our brokers give some thought to. Here are the issues, here are the things. These are also things as in the next writing group for broker responsibility course, Chance, I presume you'll probably be on that. They need to address that in that course. They need to flesh out that section of that course that deals with those issues. Those are really important issues. And a lot of people get a broker's license and they go out and they open up an office and they have no idea, what are all the other pieces of the puzzle that Brian just brought up.
Bill first and then Chance second. And yes.
Please, Bill, weigh in, please.
I think that this issue is really not a regulatory issue. I don't think we have it's wise for us to be telling people how to run their businesses. If they run them improperly, there's a lot of ramifications and recourse if you don't manage your business well, whether you have one agent or you have 1,000 agents. Again, I think the broker and agent relationship is an education, it's a mentoring, it is to some extent supervisory, but it's designed as an apprenticeship type of a relationship where you hope that they'll grow and they'll sort of grow into their industry and be learning. But I don't think we can regulate how businesses are run or structured. And I think maybe that, as Bob was saying, maybe the discussion is to make brokers aware that they have to be diligent in making sure that that they have adequate personnel and that they've got adequate communication and systems within their businesses. But I don't know that that's a regulatory issue that we should be talking about at all. I think it would be DOA if we tried to ask people to say, you can only, that we have to limit the number of agents under a broker.
Chance.
All right, so as liaison now to the committee, I'm trying my best not to give opinion, but more just to provide guidance and some things to think about. Number one, I would remind all of you that as of January 1st, most brokers are going to have a hell of a lot more LLCs under their rule. I mean, we're setting up a workshop with our council to create LLCs for our agents under this new rule that allows them that as long as they own 51% of the LLC to collect commissions in them, and they'll be registered under the brokerage name. So keep that in mind. We're encouraging our agents to create LLCs for the tax benefits that come with it. The second thing I would say is, from a regulatory standpoint, I tend to agree with Bill that I would caution against big, broad definitions. If you want to attack rent-a-brokers, attack rent-a-brokers, but be really specific about it.
So is it a discussion worthy to recommend? Is it something that we would recommend to BRAC to further investigate, further discuss?
Yes.
Yes. And I think it's not necessarily how many LLCs, but what you spoke about is more of the supervision part of it.
That would be what I think too, on the rental broker side. Yeah.
So how would you word that recommendation, Yasmin?
But don't say rent a broker.
Just recommend for BRAC to set guidelines for brokers on to after how many salespeople are under them. I don't know how to word it, but to put a number, like how many people can a supervisor really supervise? Finding what, I think that needs to be defined, like what's a reasonable amount where they can really supervise them, and then maybe possibly implement.
So maybe create an awareness of a broker about his responsibilities as he adds people from a supervisory standpoint.
Yeah, like how many people can they really supervise?
Including
By one
LLCs.
person LLC supervisor. And like Bobby said, it's also the team leads and what responsibility do they have? It's a lot of.
So to talk about the structure of supervision within brokerages and maybe some potential recommendations / education on, what does supervision look like? And what does it mean when you've got that system in place or something to that effect?
I don't think it's a definition on the supervision. It's just like how many, I think that's defined, like how many people can one person effectively, thank you, that's the word, effectively supervise.
Especially when they're in another state.
Yeah.
Or what about LLC? When you have an LLC, I really feel like the LLC piece needs to be addressed more than just the agent count.
But how can we really tell somebody how many, like if
No,
they're running
I don't
them?
think I think we look past the count of LLC.
Mhm.
I think you look at how it is put together, and I'm trying to think of a good way to say it, but
Instead of rental.
I think LLCs are a different issue than
I think so too.
supervisors and
Yeah.
team
Right.
leads and groups. I think LLCs are different.
I think it is too.
Is there going to be a way to tell the difference between an LLC that sponsors agents and an LLC that's just it's just registered for this new regulation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the registered ones will show as a registration, and I'm looking at Denise, even though she's
They'll have
not
a
there.
license.
It's no,
Yeah,
it's a registration.
it's going to be a separate license type.
Yeah.
In our system.
In our system, it's not, yeah, but
And it'll
it'll
show
show. And if you've got an LLC that's registered and that's meeting all that, the thought is it would not be under the brokerage because it's not doing, you only do that for advertising and it's not doing that allegedly, right?
So then we could tell the difference. That'll be-
You should be able to, and that's one of the things that we're looking at, and I honestly can't remember where we've landed, in terms of, I think maybe there's a note on there that says, take a look at what you've got.
So are you
what the
moving
brokerage
that
has got.
direction of creating a different license
It's
for
not,
an
a-
LLC?
so when she says it's a different license type, she's speaking, I believe, like Versa talk almost.
In our system.
In our
System
system.
wise, right. So if anybody wants to know how many there are of this type, how many are there of the other type, we'll be able to distinguish them. They're not just going into one category. That's what I was speaking to.
Internally.
But will
On
it
the
show as a
outside, it'll
registration?
be- it's
I don't know that we've explored the public facing website for the exempted LLCs, but from a system standpoint, if anyone wanted to know how many of these have we registered, how many regular, broker business entities do we have licensed, we'll be able to pull that kind of data because of how we're going to store it.
Did we boil down to a recommendation?
I saw you taking notes.
Well, you want to explore, it seems to me like you want to explore
I want
possible
to,
actions and.
I want to explore
supervision.
supervision.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really more about supervision than it is anything else.
Yeah.
The structure of the supervision and
Yeah.
brokerages.
That's easy.
And it's broad.
Yep.
So is there a motion to recommend that
Structure of
the next group
supervision.
examine the structure of supervision? and
Supervision, yeah.
That was the
I
motion.
guess so, yeah. I'll second it.
All those in favor?
I can't make a motion.
Oh, no, we heard, you heard the motion.
Yeah. Thanks, Brent.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right,
I want to be where.
motion
Dennis's
moved.
backdrop is.
I know.
Like-
It's festive.
We are down to number 7, which is what else?
That's what we talked about. So you've got, for 7, you've got future agenda items, which you've kind of done today, right? If you've got
Yeah.
others you want to throw that way, you can. It'll be a new group. We also, look, it seems weird that we kept dates, but for our purposes, keeping dates is very helpful because all the committees tend to meet around the same time.
So before we get to the next date, there is another item I'd like to explore, and maybe it falls within ESAC. But it's the rule change about education requirements for brokerage, to become a broker. And I think that was a huge change for Trek, that where you all can make those changes within rules rather than regulatory. And so I think it's an opportunity to look at the education requirements for a licensee to become a broker, which is the discussion we started with 3.5 years ago.
This is your recommendation, right? I mean, that's how the legislative change was the result of this group's conversation. It ended up being a rulemaking carve out, which is good because there's a lot more, public input and stakeholder input. But yes, I think that's one that will 100% live here, likely with some input from ESAC as well. But I think that's gonna, right? I mean,
Yeah, I
is that
think
what
we
we've
had,
discussed?
we kind of had a working group, which was a crossover for a little bit between BRWG and ESAC. Because I think BRWG weighs in more heavily on the experience, that aspect, but BRWG asked for input from ESAC on the education component.
And it's a toggle, so it's gonna probably be living with
A
both.
little bit one for another.
And the good news on that one is that it's capped at 60 hours, the rulemaking authority as it relates to education, which is currently what's in place. So we don't have to move. This isn't a legislative change where we've got to, have something in place January 1st. This is one that, you can really thoroughly vet and discuss and figure out who needs what and where.
Yeah, I think the
So
point
yes.
was there was no more movement to make until we got through the legislative session and obtained that authority. So now it can be,
January 1st.
or yes.
So
Sorry.
in next year, I would like to have the advisory committee look at the education requirements to become a broker. And as it is now, and particularly the automatic 600-hour credit for
The college.
for
College.
bachelor's degree, and leveling the playing field and just requiring real estate only education, and whether that's included in your bachelor's degree or not. Get the credit that you earned, but
And I
leveling
think we
that playing
did,
field.
I think we've got research we can bring back up, and maybe some of it needs to be updated a little bit.
Yeah.
But in those conversations, that was a lot of the discussion. And so I think with the new group starting as the advisory committee, we can kind of dig and see what all of that was and bring it back.
Yeah, because we did that in
Good idea, Brian.
2020. I think we talked a lot about that.
I think you're right, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, as chair, I don't think I can make a recommendation, but I certainly entertain one.
I'll make that recommendation to, or make a motion to look into the education requirements to become a broker and possibly modifying the college education credit.
Second.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
I think that, this is Bill. I don't think that that's appropriate. We spent a lot of time debating this, going through it, working on it, to bring it up again in this short of a time from once we've resolved the issue and created a new requirement to people. I think it's not the right time. I don't think it's appropriate to bring this up, especially for people who are out there trying to figure out what to do. I don't know that the system's broke, so I don't know that we need to fix it. And again, this is just a personal opinion. I think we should let the current situation and the current rules sort of play out, give them a little bit of time to see how people react, how they work on it, see if there's any fallout, see if it creates any difficulty or problems, and then let the new group decide later on if they want to start investigating stuff. But I think we did our job. I think we did a good job. And I think that to suggest that they examine our work is sort of a little bit, I think it's a little bit too much too soon. So again, my recommendation was that we would not ask them to reconsider all the work that we did over the past 3 years.
Bob?
Thank you, Bill, for your comments. I don't agree. I'd like to clarify what we've done. I think we did put a lot of work into it. I think particularly the next group really needs to be on board with where we are and what we've done and see if we need to do any tweaking. So I don't think I think it is an appropriate time. In fact, I think it is the exact right time because we have a new group come in, and I'd really like to see us address it. If for no other reason, let's clarify where we are with all this, because I think it's an important thing as we're moving forward. A lot of new things in the industry. I think we need to address it. I'd like to see us do that.
Well, and nothing's going to change with the legislation. Nothing changes because we've already got the rule in place. So I to Bill's point, I think he's also advocating for a really well thought out process to the extent there are changes. I think we can all agree to that, and timing and all of that kind of stuff.
Just remind me what we've done. So I think that would help me.
Yeah, we can bring that. Well, you had that recommendation initially of the toggle, which I, off the top of my head, I'm remembering like a 50%, the real estate education. I don't have it memorized.
Okay.
But that's what the next group can take that and start working with that.
Vanessa, I know at Arello, a big conversation was about buyer rep agreements and about the requirement of those. Is that something this group would discuss, or how should we go about that?
Before we go there, let's finish on this recommendation. Is there any other discussion with regard to recommending to BRAC to look at the education requirements for broker's license? Hearing none. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to clarify, like, what Bill's speaking about is the work that was done, and Vanessa, talked about it, was the toggle. And so I'm just curious if you guys would like to see the education and the experience recommendation that came out of the earlier work of this group and explore that together, because I think that's what Bill is talking about, the work that went into, but that work didn't get put into place because we needed to wait for the statutory requirement. So
I think
I'm
that's the
curious
idea.
if that's what you want to look at.
I think that's 100% the idea,
Yeah.
just to make sure the new group understands what we did.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yes.
Give us a lot of accolades.
Okay.
Presentations on that. Are you gonna be-
Yeah, there are.
But we put a lot of time into it, and we want to make sure it just doesn't die.
Well, and that's why I wanted to clarify, is because from what I'm hearing, it would sound like you would just bring the education component back. But the work that was done considered
yeah.
experience and
Just
education.
make sure everybody's understanding what we did. 'Cause we
Right.
spent so much time on it.
Yeah, we were just
Okay.
waiting for that
Yeah.
rulemaking thing to go
Yeah.
through and.
That was pretty hard work.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
of course.
Good call. Brian?
Are we in agreement? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll make that recommendation to BRAC.
All right.
Now, anything else?
Oh, Leslie, did you?
Yes,
were
I'm
asking-
Yeah,
sorry.
we're gonna wait on that.
Okay.
We were gonna wait on it until this moment.
No, until next meeting.
Yeah, I think that's something where there's like, let's wait. That one's tied to a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All right. Suggested future dates?
I think you probably keep them, unless there's a huge objection. I mean, I know we don't know who's gonna be on the next one, but having a placeholder there is super helpful.
Yeah. All right.
Good.
Wow.
If
So
nothing
what
else,
is the status of this group now? So is everybody, are we finished? Are we off? Are we waiting? Are we, what sort of the next shoe that drops?
Yeah, so the selection committee is in the process of reviewing applications, and the thought is recommendations will be made at the November meeting, voted on, and the BRAC will move forward and the BRWG will not. So this is, as this group, as it currently exists, this is it, the last hurrah.
Wow.
Yeah.
well, Vanessa, I know you asked for emails about lessons learned, but one of the things that I've learned in 3 years is the difference between rulemaking authority and regulatory change. And that's a big deal. I know we're laughing about it now, but I did not have a handle on that for a long time.
I think that's a good, so I'll do that training. Remember we did that training? And I will make sure that's in there, because I think that's hard. I mean, it doesn't really make sense. And then like a rule doesn't sound like, it sounds like a rule, it doesn't sound like a, requirement, I don't know. So we'll walk through it. That's a great point. Thank you, Brian.
What did you learn?
I learned a lot, but I would agree with you on this. I didn't really know the difference until we got into the nuts and bolts between rulemaking and statutory. And it's really taught me a lot and helped me better understand the system and how everything works. So I have a much better appreciation, and the relationships with you guys. That's what I learned. I learned that, man, I'll never forget it. And this has been a great thing for me to learn from all of you. And I greatly appreciate you listening to my antics and my things, but I really
You were
appreciate
supposed to
it.
listen.
Vacation.
I'm sorry, but I really do appreciate you guys. And honestly, I've learned a lot and it's been great working with everyone.
Oh my God, Ty, wrap it up, jeez.
I love you, man. I love you, man.
How about you, Holly?
I'm through the process, learning all the things that we've been able to together, and exploring what needs to be addressed and where we need to go next.
Okay. Thanks. Bill?
I'm just happy that I was included. I mean, it's just nice to be involved. But the truth of the matter is I learned a lot from all of you, and I wanted to thank all of you for allowing me to be oppositional sometimes, to try to give a different point of view. But I think and I also appreciated the collaborative efforts of all of us when we came to consensus. I think it's a good process. I think we did good work. I really appreciate it, and I value each of you really in meeting you and working with y'all. It's an impressive group, and I'm happy and I'm flattered that I was included in it. So thank you.
Yeah, good. What about you, Yasmin?
I can safely say I learned something every single time we met, like something new. So it's been a lot of growth for me personally and as a broker, and everybody's, like you said, everybody's so wonderful. I'm very sad I missed the deadline to apply, but I'm gonna try again in 2 years, so hopefully. And it's just been amazing. It's an amazing experience. So thank you to everybody and all you ladies and gentlemen for working so hard behind the scenes, because I had no idea. So you guys did everything y'all do.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you.
Bob, this has been a continuation for you.
It has been, and I was very appreciative when I got the call to be included in this next group, and it was very nice. In my mind, as the broker in a couple of offices, this is the heart of what we do as brokers in doing our business and trying to do it effectively and trying to do it within a regulatory compliance over body. And I am so appreciative of how seriously this group has taken the issues and really dealt with it and treated and understood that this is something that's really important to all of us who are trying to do what we can do in the business, given and I've been a broker for 55 years. It's never been like this. This is the hardest I've ever seen it. And for what we can add to help people think through it and work through it is so important. And I echo the thing. I'm very appreciative of being part of it, and appreciate how, like I said, you guys listening to some of my stuff, because each one of us has a very unique perspective based on our personal experiences, how we do in our office. So be able to bring that and say, hey, I really need some clarification on this. And you've been very receptive, and I really thank you for that. It's just, this group is a great example of how TREC has taken to heart that if they can help the brokers and the agents, all the license holders, understand how to do things, everybody benefits, including TREC. Because, as we do the things we do, in some way, I'm hopeful that we don't just add to your plate, that we help you in what you're trying to do, that it makes it better for you or whatever. So I think we've done incredible. I'm just incredibly impressed. Thankful to be involved.
Thank you. So Leslie, you've seen this group from two different perspectives. You and Chance both. And so what's your takeaway?
I think this group has accomplished so much. I've kind of kept a list of all of the things that have come up that people thought, oh, this isn't important, and it kind of moved on, and we've gotten so many places with that.
Yeah. Chance, you also have kind of seen this group or worked in this group from two different perspectives. What's your takeaway, or what have you learned?
I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that when I signed up for this group, I was not expecting to like it at all. I really did it to get a look at what happens at the commission. I was expecting it to be a bunch of bureaucracy and just government crap that I didn't want to deal with, and now you're stuck with me for 6 years. It really is amazing to see what happens when people who are really great professionals come together and collaborate for the betterment of the industry. And so more than anything, it's just been refreshing to hear the different ideas, to get exposed to the different things, to learn a lot. Kind of like what Brian said, there were things that I didn't know about how rulemaking and things were done when I got here. And so I've just enjoyed the whole process from start to finish, and I'm grateful for y'all including me.
Similar for me, I've learned a lot as well. I think when I joined the group, I was very thankful and appreciative, but I had a bone to pick, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to express my thoughts, but really more than that, to learn and learn how to make a big ship change course a little bit. And I'm really thankful that we have been able to make some changes that will have impact on a lot of people. So thank you. With that, y'all, how about y'all?
Oh, gosh, I mean, I'd said it before, I think I grew up with this committee. I remember the first day, 2020, COVID, I'm sitting in that office over there, Mark's in here, it was just like, I just remember it all. And this group, I give credit to this group. You guys have gotten a lot done, and it's been great. And I feel like I know each and every one of you, and I appreciate it. I think I speak for all of us. Like we've enjoyed the ride, and let's see what happens next. And if you did not apply, or if you missed, or whatever it is, there's always room at Trek for you to do something. We love our volunteers. This is an engaged industry. Stay engaged, and we would love to have you. So
Awesome.
thank you.
All right. With that, we're adjourned.
Thank you.